So first of all, thanks very much to everyone here this morning, in particular to the organisers, to Adele, to Andrew and to Breda for inviting me along to present. As Andrew mentioned, my name is Sandra Galvin and I'm the coordinator for the HRB TMRN, the Health Research Board Trials Methodology Research Network. We are a national support network with an overall goal or vision around improving how clinical trials are being conducted, reported and analysed. We're across all of the universities in Ireland, but we have the pleasure of having our head office, I suppose, here in NUI Galway, under the direction of Professor Declan Devan in the School of Nursing and Midwifery. But this morning, I'm actually going to talk about a research project that we had the pleasure of being involved in over the last year, and this is called the Priority Study. So I'm delighted to mention two of my colleagues and friends which are here with me today. And as I mentioned, or as Andrew mentioned, this is going to be a double act. So I'm going to present some slides here to give you some background into the study. And then I'm going to show you a very short clip. And then I'm going to introduce Jimmy Glynn, who's here with me to talk about his involvement in this study. And also I have to mention my colleague, Dr. Patricia Healy, who is the activity coordinator for Priority over a one-year period and who had the unenviable task of keeping everyone on target and delivering milestones in a very efficient manner. So first of all, I have to mention the James Lind Alliance. So these are our first port of call when we decided we were going to embark on this study, and I'll talk a bit about those now in a couple of moments. So this study was possible thanks to the HRB through their Knowledge Exchange and Dissemination Scheme Award, which many of you might be familiar with. It's open to existing grant holders, existing HRB grant holders. And really what I'd like to do today is share our story of, again, this word about real and meaningful PPI, because it certainly was a very big learning curve, both for me personally and professionally, but I suppose to the entire wider team and indeed to the network as a whole. Before I tell you about the process, I just want to kind of take a little step back and tell you what it is our topic of interest was. So the topic that we were really interested in was improving recruitment to randomised trials. So I know some of you will be very familiar with this, but for those that aren't, it's an unfortunate fact that less than 50% of randomised trials across all trial types and across all trial settings failed to recruit the number of people that they actually need to take part in the trial. So there's various implications for this. This means that we have increased costs. It means that trials are more expensive to conduct because they usually have to run for longer. They use up more resources. As a result, we have weaker evidence because the trials don't have enough people to show an effect size or show a difference in the treatment being investigated. And this also leads, most importantly, to delays for which the recommendations get right through the healthcare system and to the patient. So unfortunately, this all couples to making this a very big, real problem. But what also drew our attention to this was work by our colleagues in the UK, this network called the MRC Hubs for Trials Methodology, who also look towards improving how trials are being conducted. They conducted a study last year which identified across all of the processes of a randomised trial, they felt that recruitment was the area, or methods to boost recruitment was an area that really should be looked at in more detail and should be prioritised. So essentially, the ways in which people are invited to join a trial, how the people contact with, we'll say how the recruiters deal with contacting people and members of the public, and all of the little nuances around recruitment. So we knew that this was the area that we wanted to focus in, but we didn't really know how. We didn't know how do you go about conducting a prioritisation exercise. And this is where these two wonderful people come into play. These are staff members of the James Lind Alliance in the UK. We have Caroline Whiting and Becky Maso. So first of all, has anyone ever heard of a priority setting partnership? Has anyone else here been involved in one of these studies? Put your hands up. Okay, a few. And I see some familiar faces from our PSP as well. So basically, what a priority setting partnership is, and this is what the James Lind Alliance do, it is a method by which you can bring together the relevant people involved in a certain topic to come to a consensus around what should be prioritised for research. So we were delighted to meet with the James Lind Alliance because they basically said, okay, you know what you want to investigate, we can show you how. And it was a really fantastic collaboration. However, I've underlined this word here around treatments. So the majority of PSPs, or priority setting partnerships to date, focus on specific disease areas and specific treatments. So if you look on their website, they have PSPs around alcohol, around asthma, dementia, wound research. But this was the first time that we said, well, we're going to use the process, but we're going to apply it to trial methodology. We're going to take the whole concept of recruitment to trials and use this process to try and identify a list of research questions and to try and prioritise what should be researched. But then we also said, because we're using the PSP process, we're not just going to ask the academic researchers, we're not just going to ask the clinicians and the nurses, we're going to go out there and we're going to ask the members of the public as well, and this is what the PSP allows you to do. So the PSP, through, as I mentioned, Caroline and Becky, facilitate this partnership, and they offer their expertise and their advice from the very first meeting right through to the final end of the PSP. So now we knew what we wanted to look at, and we knew how we were going to do it, but we knew what was really important was the key stakeholders and the right people involved in our steering group. So this is a picture of just some of the members of our steering group. We actually had about 23 members in total. You'll see some familiar faces. We have Derek Mitchell here from IPOSI, Derek Stewart from Involve, Professor Devan, who was the PI on the study, and members of the James Lind Alliance. But we also had members, investigators from across the UK, universities in the UK. We had members of the public and patient representatives on our steering group as well. And all of these people's ideas were contributed into developing the process as well, all the way along the line. So as you can imagine, it was a difficult task trying to keep 23 views incorporated into everything we did. So very quickly, I've decided just to summarise the entire work that we did into one slide. This was a lot of blood, sweat and tears, particularly on behalf of myself and Patricia. So unfortunately, I can't present the actual list of research questions to you today because we're presenting it next week at an international conference. But this just shows you the type of the process that went in at each stage. So we had 2 surveys and then one final face-to-face consensus meeting in Birmingham, and that's where Jimmy joined us, and that's where Jimmy's voice came into play. The initial survey, we had 790 people complete the survey. So who were they? Well, they were everyone, and this is what we used our steering group to kind of start a snowball effect of transmitting and promoting the survey to as many people as possible. So they were members of the public who were invited to take part in a clinical trial previously, or members of the public that have participated in a trial steering group or in an advisory capacity. And then we had the principal investigators, the researchers, the clinicians, the frontline healthcare workers, all contributing to the survey. I'm delighted to say that what we did was every week we analysed who was responding to the survey. And if ever a group dropped below 10%, we really tried to target that group to get them to fill it in. So in the end, no group was less than 10%, so the voice was constantly being heard from each of the stakeholder groups. We then had this task of converting them into research questions and then merging and collapsing them down, because we had to have a list of questions to take to a face-to-face meeting in Birmingham in December. So we decided, we got as far as 25 questions, and we said, okay, that's manageable. So then the face-to-face workshop took place in Birmingham in December. So who attended this? Well, we looked at the stakeholder groups that had completed the survey, and then we decided to balance it with inviting a representative group of people to attend. So we did find that the lowest group responding to our survey was those of the members of the public and frontline researchers who were involved in recruitment. So therefore, we invited more of this group to the meeting to try and balance the opinions which were present. Very quickly, the meeting was a day-long meeting of about 30 stakeholder groups from across the UK and Ireland. We got together into groups. There were some of us were as observers, but otherwise we handed over this list of questions for the prioritisation to this group of people. And with an experienced facilitator, they went through a series of prioritising the questions. The afternoon split up into a different group again, so we got different voices and different opinions. And then finally, there was a final prioritisation where everyone in a circle got together and conducted and ranked the questions from 1 all the way down to 20. Just very briefly, and this is something if you want to have a look at afterwards, one of the ladies which attended our stakeholder group meeting in Birmingham, she has a blog. It's called Which Me Am I Today? And she's a lady living with dementia. And she summed up her experiences of the day, and I just took some quotes from this here. But I suppose what drummed it home for me is the lessons that we learned around how to interact and engage and support members of the public who are coming to something like this. And the simple things such as helping her book the train tickets and booking the hotel and meeting them on the morning of the meeting, she felt were very important. And she also goes on in her blog to explain the difficulties for her attending such an event as today. But overall, I think she found it to be a very positive experience. So As I mentioned, we're about to publish and present the top 10 and top 20 list of research questions that we have achieved from that prioritisation exercise. This is a glimpse of what the website is going to look like. We'll hope to launch that very soon, along with the publication. And now I'm just going to show you a short video clip, and then I'll invite Jimmy to come up here and have a discussion around the process from his own point of view as well. Getting there. This all worked very quickly earlier. Okay, great. Is there sound? Yeah.
So our purpose today, or mission, is to agree a top 10 list of questions for research into recruitment to randomised trials. So that's a shared list which research participants and potential participants, those involved in recruitment, trial methodologists and researchers want research to address.
Almost 50% of clinical trials globally fail to recruit the people that they need to take part in the trial. Effectively, we want to get trials recruiting the people that they need. So that started with an initial survey which had open-ended questions, and we threw it out to the masses. The process continued where we looked at themes, we tried to merge questions where appropriate, we tried to make sure that we were keeping all the information in there but getting to a list that you have today of 20 questions.
So it's that the questions can be reshaped and reformed into research questions that can ultimately then be funded as part of research proposals. I think the real value of a project like this is that nobody's an expert and yet everybody's an expert. So you have everybody on an equal footing debating a top 10 priority list for future research.
Yeah, recruitment is a big challenge in every study, and so it's always good to get different ideas of better ways of recruiting patients into studies. It's just so good to, the facilitator is very good, and it's just great to get different perspectives, and yeah, everybody's getting to say what they think.
And I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes, because I think what this acknowledges is that there's a number of stakeholders that have interest in or will benefit from research and from trial recruitment, whether that's the patients and people who take part through to the methodologists, the researchers, the clinicians. And this process acknowledges the views and priorities of all of those groups and enables them to work together to come up with a shared list of questions that they really want the research community to address.
Today has been really interesting just to see the dynamic between people who are participants on trials, people who run trials, who design trials. All of the stakeholders are here and they're all debating together. So it is a debate and it is a prioritisation, and it's fantastic to see it all happening in the one room.
Do we need a second microphone?
Great. Thanks. So I'd just like to welcome Jimmy to the stage.
Thank you.
So we had the pleasure of meeting Jimmy through the priority study, and he attended with us in Birmingham in December. So I'm just going to ask Jimmy a few questions and basically a discussion between ourselves. So I suppose, Jimmy, from your perspective, how did you become to be invited as part of this, or come to Birmingham, and how did you get to know about it? Or?
Well, first of all, I think where it started off was when I got a heart condition myself, and my father had died, say, in 1978, and he was 66 years of age, and I thought he was an old man at the time, and I used to bring him to the doctor, and the most technology that doctor had was stethoscope, and that was it. So I said to myself, when I'd get a bit of a a feeling that I needed to go to the doctor or to look after myself because I would be of the same condition as him. So I did come to that point maybe in the early 60s. Sorry, in the early 60s. And so I went into the regional hospital here and I checked in, and they had all the modern technology that wasn't available to my dad. And next thing, I think Dr. Daly came out and he said, throughout my heart and arteries, and you have a 90% blockage there. So we'll have to put in a stent, but that wasn't available there. So it was a no-brainer to me when I was asked, would I ever get involved in trials? And that was Mr. Murphy here in Tullochmore. So I signed up straight away.
Great.
Because I thought it was the ideal thing to give back something to what
That's great.
technology did for me.
Yeah, wonderful. So that was part of the cohort that we were looking to get involved, was people who had previously been invited to join a clinical trial. Yeah. And I suppose we showed the video there of the event in Birmingham. In your own perspective, just what was that like for you? I mean, coming into a room like that and talking about research and the elements of recruitment. For you personally, how was Birmingham, I suppose?
Well, I thought it was a great experience, and I think the great thing about it is, and what's here, that it was carried out in a university setting where I think your mind is opened up straight away when you go into an institution that's for learning and for research. And when I think of, I was involved in, say, National Council for the Blind years ago, and I would book a room to have a meeting, and you'd be given a little dark room in the back of a hotel where you're clouded out straight away with your mind. So it's great to have this type of institution there. And the thing about the experience there, trying to get the 26 down to 10, and we had a group first in the morning, and we'd come up with 1 to 10. We'd mix up the group again the next afternoon, and we'd come up with a different 10. And it was great to finish the day and get it 1 to 10. So that was good.
Yeah. And did you find it was difficult with the different personalities in the groups then? Was there people that were more vocal, or how was that managed?
Oh yes, there was plenty there that had very strong views, and they didn't want them changed at all. And there was no way where they're going to compromise. But eventually, not like what's happening in the Dáil or that kind of thing today, they came to a consensus in the evening anyway.
Great.
So it was great.
Yeah. And then just from a point of view of being invited to go to something like this, I mean, for some of us, can you go to Birmingham next week might be a very easy decision, but how did you find it from just getting to Birmingham, getting to the university, all the practical elements around the study that we asked of you? How did you find all of that?
Well, it was no problem now for me, because everything was laid out and I had an exact timetable, and everything was booked, and there was no problem, and all expenses were eventually paid.
Great. That's good. And just one final question. I suppose the kind of key question is, if a friend came up to you in the morning and they said, look, I've been invited to take part in a research study by NUI Galway or any other university or research institute, what would be your advice to them?
Well, I would say that we have to have people that will do trials, because, as I said, another instance there, my wife, she died of cancer 25 years ago. She was only 43, and when she was diagnosed, I was told to bring her home, that there was no point in putting her through any research or any, chemo or anything. And he gave me a 6 weeks, and she died in 6 weeks, surrounded by her 5 kids. So that's why I say we have to have people, whereas today she would have probably got a lot more assistance than that time. So that would be my advice. We have to learn, we have to get people to do it.
That's great. Just to finish up, to say thanks very much, and if you could give Jimmy a round of applause, that's really great.